Well, I just thought I'd take a couple of pictures before we start. You see the signs along the wall, and some of them are looking at the memorabilia. Make sure everything is working.
For joining us this afternoon. We think we have a pretty interesting afternoon in store for you. I hope it will bring back some really terrific memories for many of you, and it'll be a lot of fun for everybody that's here today. A couple of quick announcements, I think, before we get going that are unrelated to 10.5 years ago. The New York State Thruway, in its infinite wisdom, decided that the ideal location for a mega travel plaza on the Berkshire spur of the New York State Thruway would be between Woodward Roads and Bunker Hill Road, not more than a mile from where we sort of stand today. And if that travel plaza had ever come to be, it would have unalterably changed the hamlet that we call home. And I think the implications, the potential threats from that travel plaza were mind-boggling, really. They were anything from air noise and water pollution all the way to not being able to see the stars shine at night. And so today we celebrate the 10th anniversary of how one small little hamlet, against all the odds, let its voice be heard and convince those powers that be that this was the wrong thing to do. Why should we celebrate an anniversary like this? Well, I think there are many reasons for doing so. You know, it's rare in this world of ours that you're ever called upon to sort of defend your home and your community and really your entire way of life. And through hard work and a lot of community support around this place, and as I said earlier, against all the odds, we prevailed, and that's something that is worth celebrating. And as so often happens, when something that you really care very deeply about is threatened, you appreciate in a whole new way just how valuable and important that really is. And when we were victorious in that effort, we promised ourselves that we were never going to forget that, and that we were going to continue to celebrate the wealth and the diversity of talents that this community is so rich with. So today, we take a moment from our lives that have grown busy with so many other things to keep that promise and to remember what we were able to do 10 years ago. I'm sort of one of those people that believes that even if you're able to preserve all the wonderful historic structures, and even if you're able to preserve all of the wonderful open land around us, and those are two pretty big ifs, if you don't also protect and preserve the wonderful community, then ultimately you will lose all that. And communities are something that really do need to be nurtured and cared for over time. And so I think that's one of the reasons why we're getting together here today. For all of you who may not have been here at the time, we think it's equally important to share this story with you. Not just because it's a wonderful story, because it is very much a wonderful story, but because it's now going to be up to you if at some point in the future we have to do something like this again. And I think we can all take strength and courage from what we were able to accomplish 10 years ago. We're going to celebrate this experience today in three ways. First, we're going to play for you a brief video that was created right after the fight that tells you the whole story of the Second Battle of Bunker Hill. Then we're going to turn things over to a panel of 4 people who were members of the steering committee of the Concerned Citizens of Chatham, Schodack, and Kinderhook, which was the group that was established to fight through it. And they're going to share with all of us their recollections of the experience, and maybe what it sort of looks like 10 years later as you look back on those events. Because I think for all of us, this was a life-altering experience. I think there are many of us here who, if it had come to that, would have stood in front of the bulldozers. unfortunately, that was something that wasn't necessary. And then thirdly, we invite you to look around after we finish the panel discussion at some of the memorabilia that we've gathered here today, because the pictures and the banners and the buttons and all the rest of the stuff tell their own story as well. And then thanks to Norma and Russ Dale, we've got some wonderful refreshments in store for you. And I also, they brought the good stuff. I actually whipped up 2 batches of what I've affectionately referred to as Bunker Hill burgers. So I'm not really sure that you're going to want to eat them, but I think they're interesting to look at, because I personally think they're very cute. So I hope you'll maybe even sample a Bunker Hill burger. So without further ado, why don't we get started? Joy McIntosh was a member of the steering committee of Concerned Citizens, and we were incredibly fortunate because she had a huge amount of professional experience in the area of public relations. And so she took over the assignment of being the publicity director for our efforts, and she put out all of these wonderful press releases to keep posted the local newspapers, the regional papers, the radio stations, the television stations, and she did just an absolutely incredible job. And she and her husband, George Samergen, who's now gone on to have other people produce his screenplays for him, put together a wonderful little video. And here to sort of introduce that video to you is Joy.
As everybody knows who's here today, this is a wonderful community. And it was never more wonderful than during the time of this fight. People just banded together like nothing any of us had ever seen before. And there was so much talent in this village that it was almost like a professional organization. Everybody did what they could do, and we all worked together. For my part, the public relations, it was probably the most fulfilling public relations effort I ever made, because it was the right thing. We had all the media on both sides of the state line, Massachusetts, New York, down the river and up the river on our side. Everybody thought we were in the right. It was just the greatest thing that I've ever done professionally, and I think of it as a professional assignment. When it was all over, we did the video that George talks about. We have to include Broom Sparrow because he did most of the photography on it. We had some old film from the village's early days that was converted to video. I think we had a few other things as well, but we tried to tell the story. We did it on the cheap. It's not quite home movies, but it's maybe a little bit step up from that. My husband was the voiceover, and we like to think it told the story. I hope you all enjoy it.
Yeah, there is, by the way, in your program today, a chronological description of sort of what happened from the beginning through with most of the highlights. We're not going to read through that today. We don't want to bore you with it, but it is sort of interesting at your leisure maybe to read through that and remember what happened for those of you who weren't there. One of the most amazing things to me was that we live in an unusual place here. This is at the confluence of 2 counties and at least 4 different towns. And that, it's difficult enough to get anything done when you're in one political entity, but when you have all those political entities around, it's particularly challenging. But we got unanimous resolutions from the county of Columbia, the county of Rensselaer, and 5 towns that surround this area. There was only one, I guess, Kinderhook, where the vote was 4-1. All of the rest of the resolutions, including the county legislature in Rensselaer and the county board of supervisors in Columbia County, were unanimous. So that's my definition of a bad idea. But let me introduce you to the panelists today, and also point out some of the other members of Concerned Citizens who helped us along the way, some of whom are here today and some of whom are not. So I'm going to start, kind of run alphabetically. with Doris Appel, a longstanding judge in the town of Chatham, known by many of us as the unofficial mayor of North Chatham. She engaged in the fight from the very beginning, and she was hugely helpful in so many different ways, but certainly as a longtime elected official here, she knew countless politicians in the area. Not only did she know them, but she was trusted by them, and that was hugely helpful to us. She's also the person who knew just about everything you might ever want to know about who you need to get in touch with to get something done. And I can't tell you how valuable that was throughout this process. When we had to close down Route 203 to have the demonstration down in the town, we had to figure out how to do that. Doris knew who we call. When we were taking the cavalcaded cars off to McDonald's, we needed to know some information about what the rules and regulations were. So Doris knew who to call. And she and her trusty sidekick, Earl Kelsey, were a significant presence throughout the fight. We had hoped actually to have Bob and Sandy Lynn with us today. They were what I affectionately refer to as the forefather and foremother of the entire movement here, because they were the ones to first stumble across the surveyors out there, and they rang the alarm and went around knocking on doors and calling people and sort of got things going. But sadly, Bob had a death in the family, a cousin of his who was as close to him as a sister, and so they had to be at the memorial service today. But Bob said, when I talked to him a little bit earlier this week, that he was very much here with us today in spirit. But we were thrilled and incredibly fortunate to have Jim Catlett agree to join the panel here at the last minute. And Jim and his wife Joan, who is here,
Hi.
there she is, Joan, were involved in this effort from the earliest days as well, with Bob and Sandy and a number of other folks. And in fact, Jim facilitated at the first community meeting that we held in the church. He and Joan both worked on community organizing and getting lists together, computer lists, mailing lists, and a number of the early steering committee meetings were held in their home. He, of course, was a sign builder and a member of the Cavalcade of Cars committee. The next introduction I have to be very careful of, since she happens to be my wife, so I'll be very kind. Jan Langlois, as she has done for so many organizations in North Chatham, she stepped right up to the plate and agreed to be the treasurer of the Concerned Citizens. So she kept the books and did a huge amount of work helping with fundraising. Fundraising was a big issue. Environmental lawyers do not come cheap, and putting together an effort like this can be a very expensive proposition. We were very fortunate that this struggle didn't last more than 6 months, but if it had, we had plans as to how we were going to get the resources to continue the fight. She's a regular attendee at the steering committee meetings, a number of which were also held at our home, and she helped with the organization of the Concerned Citizens Corporation. She also worked with a number of the people on the steering committee with Lou Oliver to sort of establish the approach we were going to use and how we were going to get him paid for his services. Broom Spiro and his wife Penny Wilson joined the fight early on. They're residents of Woodward Road, so this travel plaza was just down the road a piece. It's the newest Woodward Road resident. Welcome. And he became the organization's secretary and helped us get it incorporated. He worked on legal strategy with Lou Oliver, and as Joy said, he did such a spectacular job documenting so much of what we did here on videotape. We're really incredibly fortunate to have all of that footage to look back on and to learn from if we ever need to do something like this again. He was also very helpful in getting the town boards, went to a number of the town board meetings to get their resolutions passed in opposition to the travel plaza. That's our panel today, but I did want to mention the other Concerned Citizens steering committee members. Dave Cavanero, who hopes to get here later on today but had another commitment this morning. I'll tell you, if you're ever going to have a revolution, Dave Cavanero is a guy you want on your team, because he had a skill set that was different than the skill set of so many of the people in this group, and a skill set that we really could not have done without. I remember when I first came up with the idea of doing lawn signs, I was sort of thinking politician lawn signs, you know, you put them on the light, you stick them in the ground. Dave said to me very nicely, he says, George, you know, when the politicians do the signs, it's usually the fall and it's election time. He said, we're putting these signs in the ground in the middle of winter. He said, those signs will never survive. So what Dave did is he went ahead and designed a whole new sign with a plywood backing and these big, huge stakes and stuff. And sure as shooting, those babies stood up through what was a pretty challenging winter. Not only did he design the sign, but it was in his workshop that a whole bunch of us made those signs using his tools and his materials and his expertise. And of course it was his truck that we used to distribute the signs around everybody in the community. And it was also his truck, a little more festively decorated, as you saw on the video that led the cavalcade of cars up to McDonald's. He also hand-lettered and erected the battle and the victory banners that we did. He did a marvelous job on those things. Ellen Foster and Hamp Langford, they too had hoped to be here today, but this collided with school vacation, I guess. But they too are here in spirit. Ellen and Hamp were also involved from the very beginning. They originally lived on Woodward Road, have since moved elsewhere, but in the same general area. And they both helped at that first organizational meeting in the church to facilitate. Ellen also became the third president of the Concerned Citizens, and she led us aggressively through the last few very busy months of the fight, speaking extensively to the press and elected officials and to the Thruway as well. And I think as economists, which both Ellen and Hamp are, they sort of gave added weight to the economic arguments that we made with the Thruway. Lloyd Franks, he was also a resident of Bunker Hill Road, involved very early. He served as the second president of Concerned Citizens. He helped us develop strategy. He wrote numerous letters on behalf of Concerned Citizen. He was an active participant in all the events. He was on the sign team and the cavalcade team as well. We sent him out a flyer a couple of weeks ago, and he called from his retirement home in Florida to say how much he wished he could be here for this event, but he too is here in spirit. Jack Lee is here, I know, I saw him come in. Right there.
George,
Jack?
move your chair over by the books. I can't, you're in the sun.
Okay.
Thanks. A little bit more. A little bit more.
Okay.
Better, thank
So I'll
you.
be out of here. Jack was also a Bunker Hill resident, and he joined the fight very early on because he was actively involved with the Schodack town politics and the town board there, and so he came across this plot fairly early in the process. He was a member of what we affectionately referred to as the Sons of Liberty Sign Brigade. He worked with us on Saturday mornings as we put those babies together. And he is the person that we have to thank for so many of the incredible photographs that you will see around here today. He took a lot of these pictures and gave them to us at the end of the fight. And it's a marvelous, marvelous record. I guess we can tell the truth now, Jack, on this one. I don't know, but we'll keep your sources undisclosed. But it was also Jack who was the guy who somehow procured for us the two McDonald's flags that we flew in the inverted position express on the front of the cavalcade of cars. So we thought that was a pretty cool thing. That truck. I'm not so sure how McDonald's felt about it, but we thought it was pretty cool. So, Bob and Sandy Lynn, I mentioned to you earlier, really at the heart and soul of this entire effort. Not only were they the forefather and foremother of the movement, but very early on at the scoping hearing, Bob and Sandy, and Sandy particularly, never spent any time in front of a camera or talking to the media, gave these incredible interviews to the press, really impassioned pleas, and it was a wonderful effort. But Bob, of course, was the first president of Concerned Citizens, and he and Sandy were active throughout the fight. Herb and Barbara Magison, who lived on Bunker Hill Road in the old Victorian with the turret. They were also involved very early in the process. A number of the steering committee meetings, the early ones, were held at their home. Herb had significant professional expertise dealing with state elected officials, and he was instrumental in helping guide our strategy in that way, often offering what were really critical insights into the political process, and helped us get the attention of our elected officials and helped us to educate them to our concerns as well. Of course, he was on the sign brigade, and they were active throughout. Joy and George, I've mentioned previously, and last but certainly not least, Sal Papa. Sal was involved throughout the fight. He provided legal assistance as well, helped with the legal strategy with Broome and Lou Oliver. He was also instrumental in attending a lot of the local town meetings to help us get those resolutions passed early on. He too was an active member of the sign brigade. I would also like to introduce Golden Archie's father, who is here today, Dennis.
Well, I gotta get this.
Sort of an old bull, I guess.
I guess I just have to tell you, it reminds me of the story. Golden Archie is actually a girl, so we apologize to Golden Archie for that. But the name which Joy and George came up with in the press release that we sent out when we were taking them to McDonald's, I said, gee, wouldn't it be great for us to take a cab to this demonstration? It would be a sign of our, rural heritage. It would be a great, video thing for the cameras and stuff. So I talked to a couple of people and said, well, you really need to call Roy and Debbie Deniston. They've got some cows. And so I called Roy up. I said, Roy, it's George Volmuth, and we're doing the cavalcade of cars. I said, and I think it would really be great if we could bring a cow to McDonald's. I said, so can we bring a cow? And there was this long sort of pause. And I thought, oh, this isn't going to work. Roy's never going to want to do this, And my grandfather was a chicken farmer, but I didn't really spend a lot of time on a farm. And Roy said to me, he said, George, do you have any idea how much a cow weighs? And of course, I had absolutely no idea. He said, how about we bring a calf? I said, that's a great idea. Thank you. Well, so now let's hear from some of our panelists. I think the first question that I was interested in hearing from folks about was, how did you first hear about Through West plans to sort of do this travel plaza, and why did you sort of personally get involved? Broome, we might start with you because you were pretty early on in this process, I think, with Bob and Sandy, and I'm curious as to how you kind of came to learn this and how you got involved.
Well, Bob came by, and it was the first time I'd ever met him. And he showed up at the house, and he introduced himself, and he explained how Sandy and he had kind of stumbled across the surveyor, and we had been living there for less than a year, and we came to this area, in part because there was no commercial development. So this was really, you put your money into a house and you get yourself a piece of the dream. And this was going to just rip the heart right out of anything that we wanted. It was really caused us tremendous distress. But Bob brought me into the group, and it was great watching Sandy at the scoping session. I mean, she was amazing, and I really got involved through their enthusiasm, and because of what the Thruway Authority and McDonald's doing was absolutely so personal to everyone in the neighborhood, and this was something that wasn't going to benefit us in any way, shape, or form, and really, destroy the nature of everything around it.
Jim, how about you? You were also involved pretty early. How did you find out about this?
Similar to the way Broome was approached. Early one morning, this guy came to my door who I had never met before, a guy by the name of Bob Lynn, and he introduced himself and explained to him that less than a half mile from my home there was going to be a huge travel plaza, and I just imagine the smell of diesel fuel fuel and fumes and the tremendous sound of truck brakes and what a horrible approach, what a horrible thing that was going to do to our way of life. And it was certainly intriguing to see Bob's passion, and then to go out and collect names of people who were opposed. And I know that Joan and I went up and down Bunker Hill Road and Woodward Road, and from here to there, and just about 100% of the people that we approached not only signed but gave us money, became impassioned about the whole project, and it was a very exciting time for us. And you know, one thing I would like to mention, I think, George, you know, you've gone around, you've introduced all the other people who are involved in the steering committee, but certainly you, George, were very much spearheading this whole project, and I don't think we would have been nearly as successful without you out in front. So we all thank you for your.
Doris, how about you? When did you first hear about
I got a telephone call from Sandy, and she was crying. I thought, now what's the matter, Sandy? She said, you don't know, this awful thing is going to happen. I said, you know, just tell me about it, we'll take care of it. And so she did, and so we did. Simple as that.
I'll call you with all my problems.
Everybody does.
I think I first heard about it when the first meeting was going to be at the church. Because we were weekenders at that point, and we really didn't know a lot of people here. So for us, that was sort of the beginning of hearing about what was going on. And I mean, it was just so outrageous. Not only was it going to, the noise and the smell, traffic, and
They
whatever.
told us we would have a little gate and we could go over there.
That's right. We could get hamburgers, and I think possibly at a discount. I mean, that's all they really could offer us. And it was,
That's when I knew that they really had no clue of what they were doing to us, because they really were trying to sell that as a positive thing.
And our kids could work there.
Our kids could work there, and then we could go over, and we wouldn't have to get into a car to get a hamburger. They would create a gate for us.
I believe the way that Sandy actually found out that this thing was happening was that she was out for a walk one day and just sort of stumbled across a bunch of surveyors that were there, and she kind of asked them what they were doing. I wasn't really sure when the Thruway planned to tell all the rest of us, but it was really incredibly fortunate, I think, that she happened across those
One of
surveyors.
the most outrageous things too, Joy will remember this too, that was the whole thing about their attitude about the water. They were going to, we don't have sewers, right? You notice that? We all have wells, we take our water out of the water table. Well, they were going to take their water, obviously,
Well,
quite a bit.
the famous statement was they were going to clean it up to 90% and return it to our water table.
Well, they're gonna let it come down the street.
That's right,
Yeah.
and that was when I got my moment of fame being on television and telling the world that McDonald's wanted us to drink used toilet water. That's a very vivid image. But I was going to say, there was, I think, one moment, if there was one moment, that brought everybody's anger to the fore, was after Sandy's original meeting with the surveyor. Somebody, and I don't remember whom, called the State Thruway Authority to find out what was going on. And I don't have the words exactly, but the spirit was something like, you know, don't worry about it, we'll be in the ground in 6 months. That was their attitude. And at that moment, if there were any doubts, you know, it was the arrogance of it that everybody just said, we have to stop this.
I think that was Ellen.
Maybe it was Ellen. Somebody did that, and that was the moment. Before that, I think people didn't want it, but we were really willing to be reasonable and work in a reasonable manner. But after that, you could see that part wasn't going to work.
By the way, you are all invited, if you have comments or questions throughout the process, to please offer them one and ask them.
Or if you have any problems with Doris needs.
Yes. Another thing I'm interested about is what, from your own personal perspective, you thought was the low point of the fight, when you really sort of thought, oh, I'm not sure we're really going to be able to beat these guys at this.
I'll tell you, I got really, really tired of talking about geology. I really did, and I certainly appreciated that attorney and everything else. But we went home from one of the meetings and I said to Kels, you know, we can spend lots and lots of time doing this, but we have to do something positive. We just cannot get together and, oh, we've got this report, you know, and all of these piles of paper, because you know, I see lots of piles of paper that mean absolutely nothing because you spend more time reading them than anything else. And I think that the decision to make the trip to the McDonald's headquarters was the turning point in sort of allowing everyone to take part. Everyone could do something, and it was sort of vitalizing the whole thing.
And it showed the world how many people there actually were.
Yeah.
That was a tremendous line. Of course, I can't remember how many.
Oh, I went there, I couldn't believe the
100,
people who
yeah.
came.
You know, and it was just, I'd never seen anything like it. Almost every person in this whole area was with us. I had never seen anything that amazing.
I have to tell you that we did a very detailed job. You can see it in the press kit up here that Joy put together. We had maps and written descriptions, and we had little streamers that we put on all the cars so you could identify yourself as being part of the cavalcade. And I thought, you know, at the beginning, boy, this is a great idea, and I was really psyched on. We got this truck all decorated, and we got to the town hall at Skodak, which is where we started. And we got there, and I was expecting, you know, maybe we'd have 25 or 30 cars. And then I saw we had 100 cars, and for a moment, I was petrified.
It was scary.
Oh my God, what have we done? And I said, if we get into an automobile accident or lose it, what, you know, I'm gonna get run out of town with tar and feathers.
But we had, it was a good day to do it. We had, I can't remember what radio station, but they broadcast along with us, followed us the whole way up. And we had good television viewers. As I said, every media outlet, and when we got the New York Times here, that was a big deal, because they called the Thruway Authority, and the Thruway Authority said to the reporter, what in the world is the New York Times interested in this for? Well, once they got the idea that it was bigger than just a few country bumpkins, which I think they thought we were, then they started paying attention to what we had to say.
It was interesting how the New York Times got involved. Joe, you may remember this.
I
But
do.
Jock Steinberg, who was the guy who wrote the story, had done a series on the impact of Walmart in small
Hudson,
towns.
and
Walmart
George,
coming into Hudson.
and George had seen it, and I called him.
Right, so we picked up the phone
And
and called this guy
I
and
just
said,
called him,
this
and
is
I-
another story.
And I said, listen, I don't know if you're interested, but this is what our deal is. He was right up here, you know, and it was just really great.
And the story hit the Times, the front page of the Metro section of the Times, the Sunday after Christmas.
When
Oh,
nobody had
wow.
anything to do, I mean, it's when you sit around and read the paper and you're looking at the ads and so forth. And they took a picture, but that didn't get in, unfortunately. But, you know, the New York Times picked it up, USA picked it up today, USA Today picked it up. And what was so nice was after it was over, they all did follow-ups.
Wow.
You know, telling the world that we had won. And I think it gave people all over the idea that you can fight City Hall. That if your cause is just, that there is a chance that you can win. In fact, the woman who came up and did the photograph that wasn't printed was telling us she lived on Long Island, I think it was Long Island, but her community had fought a similar battle several years before, and they had won. And she thought it was so exciting that other people were doing this too. I mean, in today's world, people are busy, they've got so many things to do. They don't think about their communities as perhaps as much as we do, or they should. But it just shows that this kind of purpose and feeling about where you live is still there.
I had a contact with a gentleman in McDonald's, and he was the regional something or other. And I planned to call him at least twice a week. And finally, after a lot of our conversations, he said, you know, I gotta come down there and see what this North Chatham looks like. Okay, that's fine. So I said, I'll meet you at the church. And so we met at the church and we drove around, and I told him, I said, you know, this is the kind of town where if you have a problem, you get food, you get covered dishes, you get everything. Oh, yeah, this is amazing. I said, where do you live? And he said, in Clifton Park. I said, oh, okay, this is not like Clifton Park. So we went up and down the road, and he looked at the farms, and then we went up, and we went on the overpass, and he thanked me very much. And then he called me before the announcement was made and said, I have to tell you, I can't tell you what's happening, but I have to tell you something is happening. And you won't be upset. I said, oh, okay, you haven't told me a thing. It was an exciting time. I saw Senator Solan last night. He was at the magistrate's dinner last night. And I said to him, I said, do you remember what we did in North Chatham? Oh, yes. He said, I remember that. And I said, well, tomorrow we're celebrating the 10th anniversary. Oh, that's wonderful. He said, that's really great. And the scary part to me was, you know, you see some of these pictures and say, oh yeah, Well, there's a picture up there with Senator Solan and Mike Rosen up there. And there was frost on the ground, and I was afraid I was going to slip down the hill. We were right at the overpass where that picture was taken. And the photographer said, well, come on this side of the guardrail. I said, oh, fine. It was scary.
How about others, high points and low points?
Well, I just want to make a point with Jim that, you know, that very early on, I mean, what's the communication system for something like this? And the wonderful thing that Joan and Jim did particularly was the telephone tree that they set up. I mean, they had gone and talked to all the people, and as they got them to sign up their support and stuff, they got their phone numbers, and they set up this wonderful, elaborate telephone tree. So when there was going to be the scoping hearing, or there was going to be a meeting at the church, or there was something else going on, they'd start that telephone tree working, right? You'd call the first round, and they'd call their contacts, and it was a wonderful.
The days
You know
before
more
email.
about it. I just know they did it.
No, well, actually, Joan did a lot of the work on it, but and it was really a way that we could garner support, get the word out very rapidly, and it was amazing how people, you know, were excited about it, wanted to be part of the phone tree, and we got a good method of getting the word out.
Yeah, it was.
Amazing.
Everybody just did everyone had something they could do, and they all did it. I guess that's the thing.
It was a very cooperative effort. You know, in a lot of groups, especially in smaller towns, it's not easy. There's always somebody who wants to do something different. I have never been in a group before or since that was so cooperative. Everybody was just so focused on what we wanted to do that there wasn't quibbling. You know, I've never seen that before. I thought at the time, and I still think, that perhaps all of us should have started a business or something. That kind of
It was
cooperation.
just fate. It was meant to be.
It just, yeah, I think stars aligned or something.
One of the other things I want to point out too was Jack's involvement. He was fresh off fighting, was it Hannibal? I guess, and some other battle in Skodak. So he brought to the table not only those flags, however they came, and a lot of contacts in a lot of places in Skodak, etc. But you know, sort of a lot of the organizing stuff of, you know, and how we didn't have to put up with some of the answers that we kept getting, right, Jack?
But one of the things that's sort of amazing about this is it really is it's a huge process, you know, and it's really hard to sort of get your arms around it, I think, when you get started. There are so many things to do, you know. You have to raise money, you you have to notify people of what's going on, you have to have a communication strategy, you have to have linkages into the public officials, you have to become experts in environmental sciences and geology and all these other sort of esoteric things, or you have to find people who know that stuff. And it's really a challenging sort of organizational issue. And then how to keep it going, and how to keep people involved, and how to keep people willing to put in time and effort and energy and money. Because what a lot of these large corporations rely on is that you're just going to get tired at some point, and they have thousands of people there that can deal with these issues, and you can't. Our strategy was really to try to do something every month that would keep people involved. And it was as small as getting those buttons, that said Hamlet's not hamburgers, or we won't rest until we stop it. So people felt that they had a way where they could express their opposition to this thing. We got the signs in the front lawn. Our purpose in that was that so no one could ever drive through North Chatham without knowing how this community felt about that travel plaza. And you couldn't do that once those signs were erected. We had banners. We couldn't figure out, and I'm not sure the state would have given us permission, to string it across the road, which was the original intention, so we couldn't do that. We hung it out in front of the library here for everybody to see as they went by. But we eventually came up with a newsletter called Common Sense, consistent with our theme here of the Second Battle of Bunker Hill. And we didn't really have the money to send it out in the mail, so we distributed it by hand. Joan and a number of other people just walked it door to door to tell people what was going on, what they could do next, who to write letters to, that kind of thing. So it was a pretty amazing effort. One of the things we might chat a little bit about is some of the things that, I guess the story I should tell, because I'm the only one who can kind of tell the story. We also wanted the Thruway to sort of know that we were out there, and while we weren't large, we would be like nits in there. And you never could tell where we might turn up and what we might be doing next. And we got wind of the fact that the Thruway, the New York State Thruway Authority, was having a board of directors meeting in New York. And we said, gee, board of directors meetings are public meetings, so we ought to be able to go to that. Originally we talked about we were going to hire some buses and we were going to drive everybody down and go to the meeting in New York. And we thought, well, we didn't have a lot of money. I don't think that was sort of going to really work. But I was working in New York, so I said, well, fine. What I'll do is I'll go to the meeting. So I call on the phone and say, is this meeting on such and such a date, and is it open to the public? And the woman says yes. She said, but if your name isn't on the agenda, you're not allowed to speak. I said, oh, that's fine. So we drafted a letter, and our ostensible purpose in going to this meeting was to make sure that the directors of the Thruway Authority knew the havoc that they were wreaking in this small little town outside of Albany. So we took the letter, and I was going to deliver this to them. So I arrive on the scene. I did my very best to look as professional as I could, which was a challenging thing, but I tried it nonetheless. I'm wearing my blue suit, and I have my two buttons on either lapel, my Hamlet's not hamburgers, but I have a top coat on. And I arrive at the place, and I say, this is the Thruway Directors meeting. I say, yes, it is. But if your name isn't on the agenda, you're not allowed to speak. I said, yes, that's fine, I understand that. I said, well, would you come over here and sit down for a bit? So I sit there, and some guy comes out from behind these double wooden doors, and he says, hi, my name is, I don't remember who it was at this point. He said, if your name isn't on the agenda, I said, but this is a public meeting, right? And you don't have any problem with my going in there, and I assume you don't have any problem with my wearing my buttons. So he said, so I open the double wooden doors and march into this room, proudly wearing my two buttons, to see that this room is like packed with people, and I can't sort of figure out what's going on.
All investment bankers.
And they drop me off at this table in the back, and I'm looking around, and here are all the names of all these people at the Thruway that we've been longing to see and to talk to. The chief engineer, Donnarumma, and Schaefer, and all this guys. I'm thinking, my God, this is a gold mine here. So I'm sitting there, and what I then realized as I looked at the agenda was that they were closing a major bond financing that day, and they had the room filled with lawyers and investment bankers, and the last thing in the world they wanted was for some, rinky-dink guy to show up. So all of a sudden, somebody comes over to me and says, "Would you like to meet the chairman of the Thruway?" And I'm thinking to myself, would I like to meet him? I've been trying to meet him for the last 3 months. Of course I would. So they usher me out of the room and into this side office off to the other side of the conference room. And I'm sitting in there, and this gentleman comes in. And I'm getting a little paranoid, I guess, at this point, because I'm thinking to myself, is this really the chairman of the Thruway? Is this just somebody they sent to meet with me while the meeting was going on?
Just a ploy to get you out of there.
As it turns out, it was the chairman of the Thruway, Peter Tufo, and he had been off on a trip for 2 weeks in China, doing some consulting work, and he came back. But obviously, he had read his press clippings, because he said, "What's this thing about this old restaurant critic up in Albany taking issue with me?" And at that point, Fred LeBrun, who used to be the restaurant critic for the Times-Union, had written in his wonderful column on December 1st, talking about all of us out here and how we were fighting this fight. So he had clearly read his publicity. So we spent 20 minutes talking about all the issues. I invited him to come to North Chatham. Of course, for every issue I raised, he had a counter issue to it. So I thanked him for his time, and we went back into the meeting. I go and sit down, and he comes back in and then embarrasses me to tears by telling everybody that the reason that they had to wait a half an hour for this meeting to begin was because he was talking to some concerned citizen. But it was a great opportunity to let the Thruway know that we were going to be there all over the place. Buffalo, New York, Albany, you name it.
Well, and
You know,
the
we-
interesting other point of that was that we also bought stock in McDonald's.
We did.
Because we said, we're going to the annual meeting, I think it's in Chicago, but that's okay. We were gonna go to the annual meeting and we were gonna make our voices heard. Oh man, what did we buy, 10 shares?
We bought 10 shares.
Yeah.
For those
It
of you
didn't
who-
matter, one was enough, you could go to the annual meeting.
For those of you who are interested, the 10 shares of McDonald's, I still own them today, and I've had a cumulative return in the last 10 years of 70%, so a 5.2% annual rate of return on 10 shares of McDonald's.
And one year, if I'm not mistaken, you received in your envelope from them some coupons, did you not? Some for free hamburgers or whatever? Well, that was the last thing you wanted, right? I think it was at that point, or maybe it was after we had won, and you sent those to Herb and Barbara, who had moved away.
But we also probably ought to mention a couple of the things that we had in mind that if things hadn't ended as quickly as they did. One of them was that we were going to trek out to the McDonald's Corporation annual meeting and stir up a little trouble.
I think Jim was gonna come
trouble
to that
out there.
trip, and he was ready.
and that would have been fun. We also talked about doing a McDonald's Day in the Capital District, where we were going to send people to every McDonald's in the entire region, and we were going to hand out these little cards that would basically just explain what we were doing, and we would ask their customers to send these cards into the McDonald's headquarters to let the headquarters know that they were concerned about our plight. We weren't going to boycott McDonald's or do anything like that initially. We were just going to let them know that we were out there and that we had the potential ultimately to affect
I told my
their
friend
business.
that we were talking about ladies with strollers and children walking up and down at McDonald's. Oh, you wouldn't do that, would you? Well, that's what they want to do. Of course, I don't want to do that.
Probably Doris's idea.
And we also had plans. We were investigating what it was going to cost us to take a billboard ad out on 787 just as you came into to Albany, because we thought that there might be a great message there. When we did our rally here in the village, which was very early on in December, and we had a big banner and we marched down the main street and we got down to Larry and Pat Cavanero's house, and Skip Dickstein, which was on the edge of a front loader or something up there, took our picture. We sent those pictures to the local media to make sure we got some coverage there. But we also had planned that potentially we might do an advertisement that would juxtapose McDonald's and that group of citizens there standing in front of the banner, either as a regular newspaper ad or maybe as the billboard ad. But fortunately, we didn't end up having to do that. So.
I think one of the things that this, the point that really happened here was that people in organizations like the Thruway and McDonald's don't like a lot of light shining on things they do, want to do or have done that maybe aren't quite right. You know, if there's not a lot, if it's not so public, it's easier for them to get their way. But when you have everybody knowing about this and people commenting on it, it's embarrassing for them. It does not help the reputation of their organization. And, you know, as Doris said, and George, there were many other things we could have done. We could have gone on for a long time embarrassing them. It wasn't necessary, but I think it was one of the keys to, you know, that we were willing to do this, to put ourselves in the front and go forward and say, this is wrong.
It was usually helpful to us, I think, too, that there was a governor's election campaign going on
Yes.
this year, because we were making enough noise out there where I think, you know, that was really.
Well, and that was one of, I mean, that points up another point. The Thruway Authority is an independent authority. They do not report and are not responsible to any legislative branch of New York State government. The only person who could tell the Thruway not to do something was the governor. So we went to all of our state legislators, and Steve Salan was very helpful. And we worked back channels and front channels, and we went everywhere we could. But they were in some ways very limited. They could tell the governor, but nobody could make the governor. The legislature couldn't call a hearing or anything else because the Thruway only responded to the governor.
And to give you some sense of the import of this was the first time that the New York State Thruway Authority had ever backed out of a project due to local opposition. And that was a major thing for them to do because they had just taken over the responsibility for redeveloping the Erie Canal. And, you know, our thoughts were, boy, if this happens with one group like us, they're going to open themselves up to lots of these kinds of issues moving forward. But that really doesn't seem to have happened. But nonetheless, it was a really significant accomplishment.
Didn't the lawyer for the Thruway Authority end up leaving?
He did.
Yes, right afterwards, the
And then
lawyer
he came to our party.
he
He
came
did
to the
come to
court.
our party.
No,
He was really nice.
Class
Yeah,
act.
he was a class act, and he actually said when he left the Thruway, and he was actually looking to move from wherever he was living, and he actually considered moving to North Chatham because he thought this would be the kind of place he might like to live. Right, Jim? He didn't end up settling here, but.
Question, Tom.
May I say something as a person who wasn't there
Certainly.
at
Absolutely.
93, was it, started?
93,
94. I had a little bit of money about 4 years ago and decided on a weekend house. And I knew some people in Columbia County, so I looked all over the place. And then I found my way up here with a realtor, and I saw that red sign in the barn, in a property that, since I had very little money, I needed to do a lot of work. And I asked the realtor what that meant. I had no idea what that meant, of course. And she told me, and that's the reason that I bought the property, because I thought, look, this is a community that I have to do a lot of work here, and so I don't want it to go for naught, you know. This town really stuck together because I live in New York City, and you may recall, George, that we were unable to stop McDonald's from coming into Manhattan. You remember that? And now those smelly things are all over the place. So, congratulations to you all. Thank you very much.
Anybody have any other thoughts or comments?
Just, George, I wonder whether maybe you could relate to the group what you felt was the defining thing that we've done that really stopped this thing.
I don't know. I think it was a collection of things. I think, you know, they were ready to sort of railroad us into this. absolutely no doubt about that. They were arrogant, they really didn't care. I think the pressure got to be kind of overwhelming, and it came from so many different directions. You know, it came from the legislators who did a wonderful job for us. I mean, Solan, Van Warren, Bazo, all those people wrote letters, and the governor heard from us. I mean, what we did, you know, we did anything we could think of. At Christmas time, we encouraged everybody to send a Christmas card to Governor Cuomo, and we gave people these little things to include in their Christmas card that said, "Won't you please stop the Travel Plaza and Bunker Hill Road and make it a Happy New Year in North Chatham." These things were coming from all over. You know, there's a cavalcade of cars on the TV. There's guys running around with buttons at the Thruway Board of Directors meetings. They weren't. And I think McDonald's, even though the ultimate authority here probably really was the Thruways, pressuring people like McDonald's, the Thruway must have heard an awful lot from the friend you gave
I
the
seem to
tour to.
remember at one point McDonald's said, "Why are you picking on us?
Yes,
It's not
they
it's
Because
the
they were an
Thruway
easy
authority.
target.
You know, why do you have to use our name, you know, like on the sign? You know?
I thought I might take a moment in conclusion.
Jack
Oh,
had
yeah,
something.
Jack?
It's not over.
It's not over, it's an important point, they have never lighted.
Not over.
We still have the group. I mean, we do the luminarias now, but we're still there, ever vigilant. If it rears its ugly head, I think everybody's ready. Not that we want to do that, but
They have never built this thing.
everybody's ready to jump on them again.
Did that.
They said they were gonna, after us, they were gonna go to Canaan / East Chatham area. And they got some resistance there, but I think that while some of it was maybe that, but maybe they got sidetracked by the Erie Canal or whatever, but they've never cited this place. And they were determined to have their rest stops no more than 30 miles apart. So it's still possible, as Jack says, it's gonna be there somewhere. Just not here.
The site over there, there was a lot of politics involved in that, and that's why they dropped it there. He's right, that could happen at any time.
I thought maybe to summarize and to close with, that I might share with you again some of the comments that were made at the conclusion of our community celebration where we celebrated this event. We, at this point, have thanked all of our elected officials and the media, and it was left to thank the most important people of all. How could a small community like ours, without the power and resources that public agencies like the Thruway and public corporations like McDonald's have, change a decision that seemed already to have been made? It was impossible. It couldn't be done. But you did it. You made the impossible possible. You were what gave this cause its strength and its power. You were the ones who went to the scoping hearings by the hundreds. You were the ones at that hearing who so eloquently articulated how much this community and its way of life meant to you, even though many of you had never spoken in front of such a large crowd before. You bought buttons like "We won't rest until we stop it" and "Hamlet's not hamburgers" as a symbol of your opposition, and you wore them proudly wherever you went. You wrote letters by the hundreds to your public officials, McDonald's, and the media to tell them how you felt. You made contributions of your own hard-earned money to support this cause, and you gave freely of your time, your creativity, and your ideas. You turned out in the pouring rain to have your picture taken as a community in opposition as you rallied behind our banner and marched here in this very village. You attended town board meetings and concerned citizens meetings in the church, and you sent Christmas cards to Governor Cuomo. You delivered newsletters to keep us informed and make sure our message was heard by as many as possible. You made banners and placards and those red and blue lawn signs. You made them, you sold them, you installed them, you maintained them, and you defiantly placed them in your front lawns so that no one could pass through this community without visibly seeing the depth and the breadth of your opposition. You made telephone calls and created telephone trees. You bought bumper stickers and displayed them on your cars, and you even wore them on your jackets. You turned out in droves to join a huge cavalcade of cars and drove for miles to demonstrate to McDonald's how you felt. You chanted slogans and cheered Golden Archie. You signed petitions and you passed resolutions, and you presented them in a basket with yellow bows, and you sang "Old MacDonald Stole Our Farm." And you did all this with courtesy, respect, and good humor. But most importantly, you cared with all your heart and soul, and against all odds you prevailed. What have we learned from all this? I'm sure the lessons are different for each of us. Some say that you never really appreciate what you have until you lose it. With this threat, we were reminded again of just how much this community and its way of life mean to us. We met neighbors we didn't know or know well before, and we were amazed by the incredible richness of talent and diversity that exists within our community. We learned about the joy and friendship and closeness that can come from a community joined in a common cause. We learned that if you work hard and believe in what you do, you can accomplish far more than you ever thought possible. But our victory here is not just a victory for this small community. It's a victory for all who believe that government must be of the people, by the people, and for the people. It's a victory for all who love history and for all who love and appreciate a rural way of life. It is a victory for all who celebrate nature and its rich bounty, and for all who love the land and the streams and the stars. I've always been proud to live in North Chatham, but over the last 6 months I've never been prouder. And as this battle draws to a glorious conclusion, I have one final hope. I hope that the spirit of Bunker Hill will live in this community forever. I hope that the spirit of Bunker Hill will live in the hearts and minds of each and every man, woman, and child in this community wherever life may take us. I hope that the spirit of Bunker Hill will live on as an inspiration to all who face adversity and wonder if they can overcome it. People can and do make a difference. You've made an extraordinary difference, and you have our heartiest congratulations and deepest thanks. It was a wonderful fight, and we thank all of you who participated in it for being there, and we thank you all for being here today as well. We have some wonderful memorabilia all over the place, which I hope as you enjoy the refreshments you'll take a look at. This is a book we put together. It's 150 pages in length. It's quite a tome, actually. But what it is it's a chronology of sort of what happened here in the form of newspaper clippings and letters and press clippings and you name it. It's in here right from sort of start to finish, including some of the press releases from the State Freeway Department as well. So you might get a kick out of reading through that and looking at all these wonderful pictures as well. So thanks again.
Do you think that as a fundraiser it would be possible to have the videotape mastered for CDR?
Yeah,
So
we
that the
can do
public
that. I
could
was just thinking about that,
could
yeah.
buy and have their own copy?
Yeah, no, I was just thinking that when I was looking at that, I hadn't seen it in so long, but we really ought to do that.
I'd love to have it. I'd love to
I
have
don't
it.
know where the original one
I
is.
think I have the original.
Because this one is a little bit marred at the beginning.
Yeah, I think I have the original. I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure. Don't know where it is, but it's someplace. And, no, they have it done and done on disc.
Oh, on a DVD.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably short enough that you could actually put it on a CD, which would be a lot cheaper.
Whatever, let me look into it.
It's about 20 minutes?
I think something like that, maybe not quite that long. Yeah, let's look into it, because I know.
Oh, yeah.
We did have some,
Grief from,
Oh.
remember who? She had her
Oh.
salon sign up right next to her town judge sign, and somebody called to complain.
There were anonymous
It was-
letters.
Well, yes, we'll get to the anonymous letters.
Do we have those in the book?
No, we don't have, you need those.
They were sent to my administrative judge.
But
And I
Doris's
got a
feeling
call
was that
from
the person said she shouldn't have this, it was a political statement, she shouldn't have it up by her town judge sign. So she did the only thing that she should have done. She took a black plastic garbage bag and she put it over her town judge sign.
I got calls. What's happening? What's going on? No, the chief administrative judge of this district called me and says, I'm embarrassed about this because these are anonymous letters. And I said, you know what I think? And he said, I think the same thing. And he said, but that's the thing that happens when and everybody knows where you live. I said, yeah. And he said, I had to not do some things. And I said, well, okay, how about if I cover my sign up? He says, that sounds right to me. So that's what I did. And really, it was not very long before they withdrew. It was within days that they changed their mind, that we heard that it was on. Yeah, I got, as I say,
Now, that was the beginning of the anonymous letter campaign that continues to this day.
Well, a special thanks to all our panelists, too.
Can we sing the song?
I was gonna do that, but after my performance, I had to. New York State Thruway with hamburger dreams. They wanted a plaza with burgers to go, and bathrooms and gas pumps, but we said no. A quiet hamlet without even a store. We want to hear birds sing, not trailer trucks roar. We cherished our land and loved the blue sky. We didn't want our wells polluted or dry. So neighbor join neighbor and promise to fight. We stood firm together to keep stars shining bright. We wrote hundreds of letters to friend and to foe, as public officials to just say no. We rallied and wore buttons, made banners too, planted signs in our front lawns to state our views. We drove in a chain with cars and trucks too, sang old McDonald's and old Archie just moved. Many said we couldn't do it, and some grew forlorn, but we believed and a miracle was born. Thank you for listening and hearing our plea. The battle's now over, our community's free.
I guess maybe if you can't sing, you want to sing low, right?
Like a drink?
I guess eventually I'll get over there. There's Jack Lee. I couldn't get a picture of him during the meeting. He was so involved, I would like to have a good picture of him on this video. You were very busy, weren't you?
Hi, how are you? So how's everything going with your all?
I always like to get faces. Yeah, I did.
I was just saying, we ought to put get the video remade with all this added to it. Is that what you're gonna do?
Magnetic bracelet is for
That's Jane. I didn't have a good picture of her either.
Published all this. Because there weren't that many of us and we wouldn't have known the right people or the right things to do.
That's true.
I understand that the other man is telling me as well. He's like the violinist, some major
I haven't had a handful of them yet.
What was your name?
Joan Tablet.
Joan was very active in the Bunker Hill battle.
Signs and the organizing committee.
Never had I done anything like this before.
George is having his, let me get it. He made those today. Those are his little
Bunker Hill burgers.
Bunker Hill burgers.
Hey,
Woo-hoo-hoo.
let's see how they taste.
How many calories?
Get the sidearm.
Oh, they are so yummy.
Little salty. Those are my Bunker Hill burgers. I made them with my own hands today.
Don't tell me they're salty, or I can't eat it.
And you ate
A
one.
little salty. I gotta get a picture of them. Great, thank you.
This was our plate of Bunker Hill burgers.
Now I'm gonna have to get the good food.
From eating